He really is feeling it.
It's a good song.
It is a good song.
I don't know what's wrong with it. It's
Even
totally-
great songs I listen to a handful of times and I get burnt out on.
Welcome, welcome, welcome.
Yeah.
Here we are, Outlaws to Advocates. We've been gone for a minute and we're back. We came back with Rockstar 2. Leslie Baxley's in the house. Awesome to have you.
Thanks.
Super, super happy to have Leslie here. Been in Tucson today in the prison, working Santa Rita. Well, most of us, Jesse's changing the world from the bottom up, working with the kids. So duty call. But yeah, things are really, really good, man. We miss you guys. We're glad to be back on. Leslie, great to have you here.
Thanks. I appreciate you guys having me. It's always good running into you all.
It's literally the first time I think I've ever seen you a little bit nervous, so that's pretty awesome.
A lot. It is not easy to do it publicly.
Yeah, I bet. It's the same thing though as when we're talking and doing anything we do in our daily lives, in our regular lives. It's just we got microphones in front of us now, so it's not gonna be anything really different than that, other than us just having a conversation.
I mean, I have been told I don't need a microphone, so.
You
hey,
definitely.
We had a list of cornering questions too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Things we've always wanted, things we've always wanted to know.
I
So-
bet you do. I bet you do. After how many years?
I think we should come clean with all three of our viewers. You know, the reason we haven't been on in the last month is
Yeah.
George Nolan just refuses
Yeah.
to run the podcast on time.
Yeah.
Like I said, he never cancels on me.
That's what I'm talking about. See, she got my back. No, it's been one of those months, man. Things have just popped up, been busy. We're gonna be off next week too. I'll be out of town visiting the grandkids. Jesse will probably be at his job, what he does every day, so that's pretty awesome. I actually posted a video of Jesse today on LinkedIn and Facebook and TikTok and blah blah blah. And then Jesse came over and felt the need to call me a liar because apparently he doesn't know how to use any of those platforms to see where the video goes. So that was pretty cool.
That's pretty low.
So you guys that did see it, go ahead and put it in the comments and thumbs up so Jesse knows we're not lying and telling the truth. Leslie, what's up, man?
You know, it's been busy. The world of reentry, substance use, addiction, just the changes going on, and trying to, as you say, reimagine and provide more services. When you've got lists of people in our state, who need it inside and outside for recovery and support, I just feel like we can never do enough, right? So,
True.
If I'm not busy within the Department of Corrections in the state, I nationally am trying to just advocate, right? It's sad when you look at all 50 states and we have 16 states that recognize corrections officers. Well, only 16.
What does that mean?
It means that they only get peace officer rights in those states. So only 16 states across our nation recognize correctional officers as actual peace officers, having peace officer rights. Other than that, they're just a guard, which we all know what guards are, right? We love that. We love that term, guard. Like, right, guard, come here. No, we don't love that. So, 16 states recognize in the nation. The fact that we can tell you nationally how many officers are assaulted in a year, but we can't tell you how many corrections officers are assaulted a year, I find that hard to believe. And nobody wants to talk about that, Same thing when it comes to the success stories. I was at an event in Utah, wonderful story. What was it? Other Side Ministries, I think, in Salt Lake. They partnered with our president from FOP in Utah, and oh my goodness, his story of his police chase, and he was wishing that the cops would have killed him. That moment in time has saved his life, and how he would have spent 20 plus years in prison, but if it wasn't for those cops that day stopping him, he would have been dead. But telling that story and what he had done and how he had went to a program like the Other Side Ministries that he eventually became a CEO of later. He spent 3 years in this program because he could, not because he had to. The judge finally granted him that versus 20 years and said, what else is gonna fail? You can have my life if this program doesn't work, but I've tried everything else. So it was interesting because one of the things that I like to be busy with is how do we break down walls? In cops world, right, we see, and I say we, the average sees criminals as dirtbags. They're never gonna change. They're never gonna be different. When I ask the incarcerated population, what do you think of guards, officers, cops? Screw them. They suck. They're out to get me. So how do we change that? That's my biggest push that I want, to look at. And stories like Dave shared over in Utah, where he got a standing ovation, and the cops were like, wow, I didn't know how much of an impact I had on someone's life in a positive way, even though they were cursing my name when I was putting cuffs on them. But years later, you're like, wow, you changed my life. You saved me. You know what I mean? So that's what I've been busy doing on both sides of the table, so, yeah.
That's a whole different kind of silo, right?
Yeah.
We talk about silos professionally and people not wanting to share information, but when it comes to the versus mentality with law enforcement and people that are justice or system impacted, that's absolutely a thing that nobody really has the opportunity to talk about until pretty recently. And now we get to do like something like this with you being here, and the work that you do and histories that we have, and now we all get to work as a team moving forward together. We get to go into CODA and speak to the new officers that are coming up, and not just about hey, like us because we're nice guys, but about the real stuff, the stuff that matters, the stuff you're going to see, the stuff that's hard to watch, the resistance that comes from us, why it comes from us. And I truly believe educating people is the answer to connection.
Oh, 100%, and vulnerability, right? One thing
100%.
that I think is interesting is whether it's from individuals like yourself who've met me while you all were incarcerated, however, also individuals like community partners or operations staff that have worked for me that are in high-ranking positions like wardens or commanders, for instance, Kevin Curran being the commander, right? Him calling me up and being like, hey, I really want to do something crazy and I want to have ex-offenders, I think he said ex-inmates at the time, right? Ex-inmates tell their stories of XYZ because I think it'll be really good for this reimagining corrections. And it's funny that he called me, but I think about it and I'm like, well, I'm the bold one who's like, I'm going to hire that guy who's still on parole. I'm going to do this program and I'm going to make us shake hands because policy doesn't say whether we can or can't shake hands. It's a professional engagement. And so I find it very interesting that people call me all the time to do the brave, like, hope-changing moments, you know?
I don't find that interesting or surprising in the least.
No, not impressive. Give us something different.
I was like, why are you calling me? Like, because I'll be bold enough to do it? Like, and I don't
But it
care?
sure feels good though.
You see who's on here? Jason Jardine.
Oh my God.
Love Jardine.
Yeah,
man.
I love you, Jason. I love
Yeah.
you. Much love. That's my doppelganger, they say. That's the male version of me.
I can see it. You guys are both men's men.
Yeah, we are very much men's men.
Absolutely.
He's got better hair than I do. That gray hair is coming in, but his is much better.
I got the best hair going.
Yeah.
Period.
I can see my reflection.
You know, it's crazy too how the mindset on officers changes as you go from living in a criminal element to living in the real world. Like, I think that the only time in my life when I've ever actually hated officers was when I was doing something wrong and I was in fear of getting arrested and being held accountable for the things that I was doing. But like, even if I look at my life, even when I was, you know, committing crimes and doing all that stuff, I always think like if something happened to my mom or my dad or my grandparents or my family, you know, what's the first thing that I'm gonna tell them? Call the police.
Yep.
Right.
You know, do it immediately.
Yeah.
You know, but it's just crazy how we get brainwashed into this mentality that law enforcement's not needed in our world. You know, and for me to ever become a responsible, productive member of society, then I had to leave all those old beliefs behind and become a law-abiding citizen. Because you can't live in both worlds.
Yeah.
You can't. I remember when I was over at Bachman, my neighbor, he was a Broadway blood. He sold drugs all day long, right? And he was always watching CNN, and they had this big thing about defund the police that was during COVID, right? And I was like, he's like, oh man, this is cool stuff, man, defund the police. And I'm like, if somebody breaks into your mom's house, what's the first thing you're gonna do when you go to that phone and ask her? He goes, I ain't trying to talk to you, Shaw. So you're gonna call the police. Did you call the police? Because you know that they're gonna be there first before anybody to protect your family.
Yep.
Ridiculous.
They
Pretty backward stuff.
my hand got forced. So like 2020, 21, my son became a police officer.
That's awesome.
I was like, I gotta change my whole entire mindset. You know, I was already on the recovery thing, but I obviously started looking at law enforcement a lot differently because someone I loved, my son, was now part of that. And then being on Graham unit and being around the staff that was out there from the DWAP on down, I started seeing people as human beings. They had, for the first time, it was probably my mindset, probably Safford, you know, the prison there, and the combination of the two, but they were talking to me like a human being, and I was probably a little bit more receptive than I was prior to that. I was like, oh, this,
You know,
they actually care. They can, you know.
that attitude carries on too. Is like we're free, right? Like, cause I created a friendship with my former warden, and then when I met my probation officer for the first time, who doesn't know anything about me, they're a different state agency, ended up being like one of my best friends. It was like it just happens.
No.
You know, it just happens because that respect that you have for individuals that you know, like, keep our cities and our streets safe. Like, that's respect.
Yeah.
You know, come into my home, please. Like, you know, is there anything else that you want to know about me?
What's fascinating to me is, was at Kaibab, as you know, that's one of our rougher prison units, and
Were you scared there?
no. I mean, I'm always like alert of where I'm at, but I know what I'm walking into. I mean, I work central unit for crying out loud. I've never had to use force in any law enforcement profession I've ever had. First of all, never in border patrol and never in corrections. I'm very good.
Oh, you were border patrol?
Yeah,
Oh, that's
I'm
cool.
very good at de-escalation. I also don't shy away from it either, like to go to it, but usually very good with calming down a situation. So,
Drama chaser.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I remember walking into Kaibab, and I was walking around with the warden there, and somebody else from Education for Edgeridge, I can't remember who it was, and two inmates were coming off the rec field. And they're like, who are you? You know, it is when you walk in the yard and you're in a suit, you're like, who's that? Who are they here with? What are they here for? Oh, can I tell them about my TV that got broken that never got replaced? You know what I mean? Can I tell them about that ripped shirt that I never got back? And so I'm like, no, I don't do any of that. And I stick out my hand. I said, my name's Leslie Baxley. Nice to meet you. And they just both look at me like, the guy who I'm talking to, and then his esquina, for those of you who don't know what esquina is, that's a corner. And I'm like, really? I'm like, you're not gonna shake my hand? And he's like, no, you know I can't do that. I said, I didn't ask you to look around for permission or acceptance. I gave you respect. I introduced myself, and I'm treating you like a man. You gonna shake my hand? And he's like, well, no. I said, well, what's your name? And he says, whatever his last name is, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I said, I didn't ask you what your last name was or your DOC number, sir. I asked you what your name was. Is it Ryan? Is it Jimmy? Is it Tony?
No.
Like, he says, well, that's all you wanna know. And I said, that's not what I wanna know, sir. He says, well, that's all DOC wants to know. And I said, no, I don't want to know that. And so, like, those types of stigmas, those types of perceptions, like, how do we break that down? The incarcerated population wants respect from staff. We want respect from the incarcerated population, but staff aren't willing to shake hands, and either are the incarcerated population. So, like, I mean, what do you do?
Well, the good news is there's been a huge shift in that. I see it on the different units that we get to go to, and the buy-in that's coming from both sides, because you can't improve lives for one side without the other, right?
Yeah.
Everyone's kind of got to grow together, and seeing even like this, like Jeremy was saying, the staff that my case managers, you know, my security staff, my kitchen officer called me last night from 4 years ago.
Oh yeah, the one who started talking to you like a person?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
He called me last night, and we had a conversation, and the things that are happening on the yard, I first thought that I was probably seeing things differently because of my mindset, but now as I go to different units and I see, like when I went to Santa Rita, when we went out there for the first time, both the people that are incarcerated and the people that work there were talking about improving the community together and making the community better for the other one. And you could see I don't want to say camaraderie, but you could see the buy-in and the fact that they want it to be a better, safer, happier place for people to grow, people to heal. People think of prison, and it's unfortunate. We're not going to get into it, whatever, but the stuff you see on the news, that's all you ever see.
You never see
Right?
the good.
You never see
Or Instagram.
You never see an RSAC graduation. You never see.
Just talking about that
Yeah,
today.
you don't see second chance graduations, and these are literally the second chance. I don't know about RSAT, but the second chance graduations are broadcast live on Google Meets.
Yep.
There's a million ways to get these recorded and to share them with the news and all this other stuff, and I guarantee you people have, but it never gets played. And all it does, all the media does in that point is just progress that stigma. Of course, there's prison. Things are going to happen. You got a bunch of dudes locked up in the same place. People are going to hurt each other. I don't care if it's high school or if it's prison or if it's college. It's going to happen. But what they don't see is the shit that, or the magic that happens on the RSAT units, on the second chances, on Santa Rita, which is neither one of those two. That's just a regular yard. Cimarron, when we go there, you saw what was on the news about that.
Mm-hmm.
What they don't show is the class that we're having. What they don't show is the officers saying how so-and-so has changed and so-and-so has gotten better. Nobody broadcasts that stuff, and that's a shame.
Yeah.
That's
And there's more of that going on than the negative news stories that we're hearing, and that's the
Yeah.
unfortunate thing.
And what we're looking at too is part of this cultural shift that I've witnessed since 2017 and get kicked off is the expansion of therapeutic communities, right?
Ah.
What we were talking about today, was amazing, and one of the individuals really highlighted that this relationship is only gonna take place from the person that inside, like you seeing things differently. That's exactly what he was talking about, coming from a place of self-forgiveness, like, I am where I'm at, and I'm a man, and I'm going to move forward as a change agent, right? And that's exactly what he expressed. How do we get individuals to that point, to where we're living in a more environment that's conducive to vulnerability and opportunities to mentor each other, and see our ways through this to create a better outcome. It ain't got nothing to do with no cops. It's got nothing to do with them. But it does happen to do, you guys have to see this every day, right? I got some feedback today from somebody who visited Louisville, and they saw somebody in a cage, right? She looked at both spectrums. She felt the officer that had to come in there and sit there and watch that person all day, and the person that was in the cage, right? And highlighting the
We call that an enclosure.
yeah, an enclosure, yeah.
Enclosure.
Yeah. Well, it's so they don't self-harm. They have
Yes.
pads on them,
It's
they have
enclosure.
pads on them, they're at a repetitious habit of, self-harm. But that has changed too, right? Like, you don't mace somebody for banging their head on the door. There's actually instructions on the side to de-escalate.
Yep.
And ask them if they wanna go for a walk,
A cool down period.
cool down.
Yeah.
There was none of that before 2018. So the expansion of this therapeutic community within the Department of Corrections is something that definitely needs to be highlighted more. People are more inclined, that's why, like, for example, the show Ridiculousness is so popular. People thrive off the misery of others.
Mm-hmm.
So whatever is radiating inside, if it's negative, they're gonna gravitate towards something like that. And so when something negative pops, they attach themselves to it, and then nothing else matters. And that's it's sad. It is, it's sad.
What else I think is happening too, I know when I started doing time, I got my number at 18 years old, prison was a lot more dangerous.
Yeah.
And now, a lot more of the yards are almost more like a camp. They're a lot safer environments to where people can actually heal, and they can actually be themselves, and they can actually program without having to live in fear. Because there was times and there was places to where, and I know there's still places like that left, there's just very few of them.
Yeah.
The majority of the yards are safe spaces to where if you're in a mindset where you wanna get better, you can. And I think that's one of the biggest things that I've noticed that changes it. In the majority of the yards, I think the majority of the people are just sick of the politics. They're sick of the same stuff, they're sick of being controlled, and they're sick of being in prison. I know that's where I was at. You know, it just got to a place where it's like, I wanna do something different. And there's a lot more spaces now where you can do that.
And there's a huge improvement in programming. You can earn a bachelor's degree through the tablet. And
Yeah.
not just some BS degree,
Yeah.
an actual bachelor's degree that you gotta bust your ass to get. I do wanna interrupt real quick. Jason Jardine said, just wanna say that in the 21 plus years in corrections, I have never been more impressed, even intimidated by her drive than Leslie Baxley. Hands down.
Good compliment.
Thanks,
Yeah.
Jason.
Yeah.
Thanks. It's the end of the day from a long proposal. I'm exhausted, so you guys are getting me with a limited battery left. Sorry. Yeah, but I appreciate it.
I remember my first introduction, when I stepped up from Bachman. This was back in '07, and I had an outstanding warrant out of New Mexico, so they bumped my custody level. It was my first introduction to a 3-yard. The dude that introduced himself, some guy named Lurch or whatever, I literally knew this dude. He's sitting there telling me how things go down when I watched him digging ashtrays out there on the street. I'm like, something's amiss here. I remember a long time ago just telling me dude, this is not really happening
Yeah.
to me right now.
No way.
No way.
No.
And I've been that way ever since. And my brother who's done a lot of time
Yeah.
since '94, he told me when he got to that, because there was still, you could do hardships back then. He sat me down and he said, Jeremy, you're an independent, which means we don't play that game. We go with our values and where we came from. And as long as they're not a brother, do whatever you want to do. You don't have to answer to anybody. You don't have to do any of that. And so we've kept our stride in that area. So
So how long have you been, in this field, like in the reentry space, the recovery?
Reentry and recovery combined, I got into counseling and treatment, in 2021, so like 4 years now.
So yeah, cause
And then I was a CO3 in 2016, so, you know, that was reentry side, so about
Take my bed in
9 years.
2013.
Yeah, we met, when I was an officer, Jeremy, I would have never thought I'd be in the same space with him. I would have never thought that I hug him when I see him and that he has my number and blows it up every single week. I would have never thought.
I go calling you because you don't call.
I really
I'll
liked
bet you
your
call.
messages. I really like your message of inspirational hope. I want
I
you
can't
to
tell,
know.
you don't even like them.
He's not sensitive at all.
Not at all,
You know
not
what?
at all.
Remember how insensitive I was though?
Yeah, he was really insensitive. Yeah, so I would have never thought I'd be in the same room, us as the same, inmate who's like, you just wanna pat down my hot girlfriend. Like, yeah, no, and you've grown so much, and so like, you're just a great man, and like, if you asked me 13 years ago, 12 years ago, if I would have ever thought that you would be anything different, probably not, because I was in that mindset. Now, if you would have asked me in 2016, as I say when I drank the Kool-Aid, which I know we're not supposed to say anymore, but when I drank the Kool-Aid, I saw change in a guy in my office, and I'd only been a CO3 for like a month, and I was like, wow, that's addicting, like I want that. And ever since then, I have wanted to provide an opportunity, provide as much change as possible. So then, my best friend and colleague, Courtney, saw something in me, probably because I was just a pain in the butt to her in the academy. She'll be proud that I didn't say the A word. But because I was a pain in the butt to her in the academy, she said, all right, you little turd, you're gonna come and teach. And so then it was my mission to make as many duplicates of me as I could. Drink the Kool-Aid, drink the Kool-Aid, drink the Kool-Aid. Because then it's not just me in my class of 16 that I get once a week, or those one-on-one interactions that I have. It's me everywhere. And so I just got fortunate enough, one of our previous assistant directors, Karen Hillman, a great mentor to me, she saw something in me, asked if, you know, I might be the right candidate. I had to work really hard for it. I made a spreadsheet based on a grant narrative that I got. Funny thing is during the interview that I did virtually, they're like, what would you do in 5 years? And I was like, well, can I show something to you? And I show this data spreadsheet, because I looked at their WIP reports. I knew who was working there already. I knew all their clients. I had a spreadsheet. I had race. I had like substance abuse score. I had intervention level. I had release date, what I wanted from them, what the project goals were, and I shared it to them. And somebody on the interview was like, oh my goodness, she's very analytical. And that's what won me the interview, really, and won me the position. I never knew what I was getting into. I didn't know anything about counseling and treatment except for in 2013, I had to sit on an escort a birthday cake celebration is all I thought it was. I had no clue that you guys got cakes and graduations, except for you got them. I knew it paid more than a CO4 at the time, so yeah, that sounds great. And then the first 2 months I was lost and just started watching things, observing and reading, and I fell in love with the world of recovery. I love and hate my job though. It's so hard.
Yep.
I will tell you this. When I ran into you at the first resource fair that was held, I felt like I met one of my best friends. I'm like, who are you? I'm like, I want you in my life. So that's the type of impact that a new view and a new outlook has. And you linked me right to my former warden, and I was still on paper. I got to go back into prison. Like, so much happened as a result of that. I knew I had an instant friend.
You are one of my best friends, and as much as, the only reason why I don't answer your calls is because it's not 10 minutes, Jeremy. We talk for 45 minutes, so I've got to be really committed to that. But I will tell you, when I do my long drive, I make time for the 45-minute drive, and we do catch up, and I love it. But what I do love is when I'm not able to answer the calls. This is the only person in my life who leaves me the most inspirational, heartwarming messages that I've ever had, minus my Valentine's Day song, because the song was great. However, it means so much when you say you're making a difference. And recently on my outside of life, it's been really rough. So just know you have helped me, and you're too close to it for me to want to open up.
Well, you're not only a leader within the correctional setting, but you're a leader in our community, which is, you know, expanded out from your position. And you lead by example. So, you know, we're really grateful to, be a part of your journey in your life, and I know that, we appreciate you leaning into us, when you have those days where
I appreciate it.
things aren't going the way you want to. I send them inspirational, I quit doing it because they don't.
They don't love it either.
They
Either?
don't.
I do love them. I do love them.
They just don't, you shouldn't.
I shouldn't, whatever. Yeah, whatever.
But I had heard, because I got into the peer support and all that other stuff a few years before I got out, so I'd heard your name
Mhm.
quite a bit. And then I was at Globe, and the staff wasn't as receptive there at the time to new programming and stuff like that, so I was like, yeah, I want to change. And I tried to go to either RSAT or Second Chance. I ended up at Second Chance, and then RSAT almost pulled me. I'm like, but I just got to Second Chance. I'm just
Missed
gonna
out.
stay. I was like, I'm gonna stay here. I had a really good experience at Second Chance, but I'm sure I did miss out. And I kept hearing your name, and then I was involved with the Hustle program, and I had that opportunity shortly after release to go back onto Globe with Hustle, and I got invited out to this fancy. I just moved into a halfway house, and the person I was involved at the time was able to talk my halfway house manager into letting me out past curfew to go to this dinner. And I get there, and it's a bunch of correctional staff and speakers from Hustle and all these other people, and it was cool. Like, I was definitely cool with staff, not worried about it. As soon as she introduced herself, I was like, oh man, I've heard your name forever. And the guy sitting next to me offered me a drink. He said, hey man, you want a drink? And every single correctional staff person was like, no, he's good, he's good. I'm like, no, I can answer for myself, I'm good. But it was cool to see the people that knew my history, that understood probably that I probably shouldn't have a drink, especially 2 days out of prison.
Car in the parking lot.
Yeah.
You don't think you could have one like a gentleman?
I definitely could not. To this day, I won't have one like a gentleman. But my dope feed mind tells me that I can go have a couple of drinks. I fully believe I can, but I'm just not taking that chance. But it was just really cool to see that carry over. And then it was funny when I left, two of the other correctional officers, two of the men that were there, walked me to my car.
Like you're being escorted.
Yeah, I was like, I'll be all right, guys. I'll be all right. But it wasn't like a controlling thing. They were just literally just being polite, making sure I got to my car. Like, it was just, they turned around and walked the other way. I'm like, you guys just walked me to my car? Like, oh yeah, I was wanting to make sure you're good. Baxley told us to look out for you. Well, all right.
There's nothing more that makes me happier in my day than to see somebody that I've touched while they're in the prison setting and to see them doing well post-release.
Both physically and emotionally.
Of course, both. Yeah, I
Patted
mean,
me down,
except
so.
for you. So, no, I'm just kidding. Just kidding. So what was really fascinating was I was on a date about a month ago, and I was in Phoenix, and I shouldn't have been in Phoenix. It was a Saturday night. I'm sitting outside. You'll remember this story.
I do remember.
You will remember this story.
I definitely
so
remember.
I'm in the middle of moving from Yuma to Phoenix, by the way. So it's Saturday. I'm not supposed to be in town. I'm on this date, 6 p.m. I should have already left to Yuma, and I'm still going to drive to Yuma. But on this bicycle, the most not looking well put together individual with a slung over like duffel bag and another bag and a shot bicycle. Stops, twists his head, and goes, "Hey, are you from RSAT?" I said, "What? I'm in Phoenix. I don't even know where I'm at in Phoenix. Don't ask me. You asked me the crossroads. I didn't know." Anyways, so I'm like, "Yeah, who are you?" And he's like, "I'm so and so," and he gives me his name, and I'm like, "Cool. How do you have a seat?" And then I'm like, "How do you know who I am?" And he's like, "Oh, I seen you on the video, and I went to Manzanita. I graduated. X, Y, and Z." He's telling me the story. Anyways, he needed a place to go. He didn't want to go where the parole officer sent him. But it was so crazy that like me on a tablet or my name, I was just at the right moment and the right time. I was supposed to be in Yuma. And what did I do? I called George. Because I said, "Oh, you don't want to go where your parole officer's going to go? Guess what? You're probably going to be reoffended or go to a reentry center. But would you be willing to go to this place?" Because the place that he's referred to wasn't one of those great community partners.
Yeah.
You know, the ones with like 3 letters.
Yeah.
We'll just leave it at that. Not that great where his parole officer's going to send him. And so then I was like, "Would you go to New Freedom?" And he tells me, I can't get into New Freedom. They won't take me. And I said, "If I can get you in right now, will you go?" Phone call to you, 72 hours later, detox, we're good. But it's just like like you said, my name and like whatever on top of it. I didn't even know the guy. Never met the client in my life, but he's just seen me. I was like, "Okay, yeah, I'll help you." Like, those things are great to me. I just wish I could be there more to have more client interaction now, but.
Yeah, it's the only time you get a call on a Saturday night from DOC staff to get someone into a detox, and it's just pretty awesome to
Just be able to do it.
Yeah.
yeah, because like even when Jardine talked about her drive, we're bought in because we spent a whole bunch of time in prison. Our lives were pretty terrible for a while. We've been through addiction, and there's a lot of trauma from that, right? So that, I know for me, that's what fuels me.
Yeah.
Leslie's in it because this is her heart, and she
Yeah.
probably outworks all three of us. You know,
It's hard.
you were literally working right up until we turned the mics on.
I know, I'm sorry. I am sorry, that was kind of rude. So,
No, not at all, man.
it's funny, people do ask what drives me. I think there's a lot of things that drive me. I have an uncle who's in California. He's an in and out offender. Started probably early days of war. That's why, Danny Rizzi, I love you. You touch my heart because you remind me of my uncle and his story, which we've talked about with the military background. I think he experienced like heroin or opioid or poppy over there, and then when he came back, had an addiction, and then that led to obviously criminal addictive thinking. And I think he's probably on the spectrum. Back in the 60s, 70s, you didn't have those
When
types
you
of
came back from
diagnoses.
Vietnam, you were treated like shit.
Of course, yeah.
Right?
So
you were
then you,
alienated and isolated,
100%.
disconnected.
100%. I don't think it was Vietnam for him. I think it was the war after that. But whatever. Either way, he was still exposed to it.
Yeah.
So then he comes back and he gets into heroin and he gets arrested for his first charge. I don't know, like 30. And he goes into prison and then gets addicted to meth and comes out. And he gets addicted to the next drug, comes out, in and out, over and over. And it's like he's never gonna get better. So that's what drives me. He calls my grandmother the most horrible names when he's intoxicated, and I have to hear the sweetest woman in the world cry. And I'm like, it's not him. That is not my uncle right now. Wait till he gets clean and sober. Talk to him after treatment.
Yeah.
And so to hear my grandmother cry, I can't do it. I lost my sister to addiction, alcohol, but also it could have been me. Like, I've done some not great choices, and I've had some very lucky, opportune moments. You know, I might have had longer hair, might have wore some different clothes, not the tank top and the tattoos, you know, maybe a dress here and there on the night, but I was very fortunate and very lucky that scared me enough to, as they say, get straight, or straight as I can get, right?
Well, it just goes to show how powerful this disease actually is, right? We learn in our program, it's sometimes quickly, sometimes slowly. And in prison, we've met people like, oh my gosh, this is genuinely a good dude, or just bad, something happened at, in a split second time where it cost him his freedom. But that's why, and it's like when I talk to families or I talk to friends, I'm like, you can't talk about them like that. You have to remove that morality aspect, because why are people losing their freedom? Why are women losing their children? That is abnormal behavior. These are good people whose brains have been hijacked by a disease we call addiction. And if that is more stronger than the love for their children, then obviously you would be able to have some type of semblance of some understanding of what's really going on in the brain.
Yeah, no, for sure.
Yeah,
Well,
definitely lowers the inhibitions.
And the reason why I told you guys earlier, like, and you might have heard it, that I love my job and I hate my job. I love my job for moments like this. Like, look at this room. Look at the change that someone created through the impacts of hope and guidance and time and support that somebody in your life provided during, whether it's support or the system. Like, let's face it, you know what I mean? And so if I say I hate my job, it's not because I can't do enough. It's because when I lose them, I want to know why and what more could I have done. And it's so hard to lose it, but I have to constantly remind myself that I can't make you change. And when I say you, like, you can't make me quit chewing tobacco. Let's face it. I have to commit to not chewing tobacco, which I'm trying.
Hold on, we're just-
It's fine. We're going tobacco free. I'm taking Chantix.
Oh, that's right.
Dude, I am straight jacket bound.
Well, when is the tobacco free thing coming?
Oh God, it's September 1st, and I have to get on board with it. So for those of you out there from DOC, I am on Chantix. I am trying to quit chewing tobacco. I'm sorry if I'm cranky. Courtney said I was cranky today. She
Jason
found out
gave
that.
you and me and Courtney shout outs.
Yep.
So, thank you, Jason.
Yeah, it's rough, man. But I really am having a hard time with it, man. So.
Yeah, it was easy. Everybody would quit.
It falls in, I know that you don't engage in Alcoholics Anonymous, but it's a common theme that we lose people all the time, right? And so, Jesse really highlighted it to me when one time there was this guy that got out, and this other guy comes around, the guy that used to hang out with him all the time, came running up, he's like, oh my gosh, he got out, he died. And Jesse just looked at me and just said, real clearly, some die so others can live, right? So that is the reality and the nature of this disease, right? Working in recovery isn't always peas and carrots, but when you get tapped on the shoulder or pulled off by the side of the street and somebody taps you on the meeting that was one of your former students, and they're in positions in life where they're taking care of their families and they're shining in our community, it makes it all worth it. It's like my level of chaotic balance, right? It's just, and we have a responsibility with this light to not only share it with each other, to lift each other up, because it's easy to get isolated in our projects, right? It's easy to say, hey, I'm getting overworked, right? But we have a sole responsibility with that light to fill each other's cups, because we understand what this work entails. So that's why maybe I should have took that call. We take those calls, right? It's not that easy. I know that firsthand, but we have a responsibility with that light as a community to fill each other's cups.
Yeah, for sure.
Chris Hooley said he's gonna call you and tobacco check you.
Thanks.
And you know he will too.
Oh man, thanks. So yeah, I'm sure there's a few on there that are gonna hold me accountable.
Yeah,
I don't want no
absolutely.
pull-ups.
I'll
Saying,
be-
I don't need no pull-ups. I'm doing good in the tracker.
I love the push-ups and pull-ups and the whole thing that they have down at. Can you explain what the push-ups and pull-ups are? I don't think Jesse knows.
Yeah, we work them out because that's how we barbell saves and that.
Barbell
thing.
saves, yeah.
Okay.
They were just on here a couple weeks ago too.
Yeah, I know. So in a therapeutic community model, which we have two, one at the Bachman unit and one at Manzanita, in order to document behaviors, both good and bad, community members, including staff and incarcerated population, are required to submit 6 positive interactions or things that they see with the community member, could be of any level, and then 1 negative thing that they see. Now it's not 1 and 6, it should be like next time 10 and 2, like it should never be 1 and 6. You don't just do the quota. So a push-up is something good. So if I'm like, hey George, you're really kind to Jeremy last week when he was struggling, that was really nice of you to step out of your way and
Thank you.
do laps with him. I'm gonna give you a push-up. So I document it, pro-social behavior, and it gets put in our system. Now, hey, you dance all over the flower garden, Jeremy. That was really disrespectful. Yeah, because that was really disrespectful of all of George's hard work, and
I had some pretty flowers.
and so that's all that hard work. You didn't care. You just said, I don't care about the 8 hours you spent on this garden or the flowers or anything, and everyone else appreciated it. And you said, man, I didn't think about it like that. I just was frustrated, and wanted to kick some dirt around.
Yeah.
I wasn't thinking about George's work or these pretty flowers.
Yeah.
Well,
Sorry, George.
yeah.
That's okay, I forgive you.
So then, we give you a pull-up, which is holding you accountable. Now they get read every day in the community, so it shouldn't be a shocker when the next morning maybe you're the one reading the morning meetings and you read the morning minutes and you're like, pull-ups for today, George Nolan. He's like, whoa, you did not talk to me about smoking in the bathroom. Why are you putting me on Front Street? Because accountability should be had one-on-one, and then accountability should be had publicly. So that way, if you're smoking in the bathroom or kicking the rocks, around the garden, all of the rest of the peers can help you not smoke in the bathroom, not have your emotional outburst that led to you destructing something beautiful. You know what I mean?
Sounds like my childhood.
Exactly. So that's what a push-up and a pull-up is. And then when we have enough of the same interactions, it creates intervention steps, such as a community behavior check. So then 2 of the same incident would be a panel of peers within the community that literally handle it and then tell us the outcome. So they say, you've done this repeatedly, you've kicked the rocks a couple times around the garden. Your learning experiences for the next week, for 2 hours a day, you will go around and make these gardens pretty. You'll water the plants, you'll rake them, you'll make them pretty. And every day you're gonna come back to a member of our peers, the 3 that are here, and you're gonna show us that you've done the work, and we're gonna go inspect it. And at the end of the week, we'll turn it into the program, and you'll be free and clear. Now let's say he does it for a 3rd time, then it'd be a community level, and we put him on Front Street in front of all the community, 200 people, where he has to say, I did X, and this is why, and I need help dealing with my anger or my temper tantrums. Can you guys please help me? And then more learning and so on and so forth. 5 of the same incident can really get somebody removed from the program, so I don't really need disciplinary tickets to remove somebody from a unit that has a therapeutic community in it. So it's really interesting because when we started them initially, the officers were saying that disciplinary tickets don't matter when I write them, because as you know, tickets increase classification. Well, if I'm only targeting low and medium and we write them tickets, their points go up, therefore they have to leave the yard. So also, what do we learn from tickets, right? Hey, when I took away your phones, Jeremy, and I took away your TVs for doing some inappropriate stuff in visitation, did you really not have the ability to talk to her anymore? You had no phone access at all? 60 days LOP because you and her did something inappropriate. You didn't really, but like, so I take 60 days of privileges. What are you doing? What are you learning from
when
that?
you were there, you would.
No, I know. Well, I know. I believe that. I do believe that. Yeah. But what were you doing for 60 days without a phone, without electronics? Tell me, did you absolutely not watch TV? Did you absolutely not use the phone? Did you absolutely not do any of that?
Fuck LOP.
Yeah, exactly. You three-way called. You contraband called. So you learned how to be a better criminal or negative disciplinary. And then you jack somebody else's TD who owes you money or whatever, you know, for the time being to watch the Super Bowl game or This Is Us, because I could see you wanting to know the season finale of This Is Us. You're totally into it. Yeah.
Jesse was watching Below Deck all the time.
Oh yeah.
Jesus.
But like by not having those moments, the push-up and pull-up system, that model creates those moments of not only did I do something wrong, but you're not in trouble for doing something wrong. We're encouraging you to tell on yourself. We're encouraging you to say, I messed up. How do I get better?
Do you
Accountability.
ever run into a situation to where maybe somebody that's newer at first might have a little bit of defiance and might not be as receptive to the humility, but later comes along? Or if they're not humble right away, is it see you later?
I might have had a basketball injury here or there.
Yeah.
You know, the community does a really good job of covertly documenting those things. Has there been incidences? Yeah, nothing significant like that. I was just joking with the basketball injury, by the way. The way that we do it is we move a group of or a cohort in 1 week, and so we tell the community this is incoming week. So those 180 people that live there at one site, you don't get to do the push-up and pull-up model for these new arrivals during this 5 days. Now you can explain it to them because they have to go around with the hospitality committee and shake hands and do icebreakers with like 20 people. That's every new arrival's first job, to meet new people in the community. So you can explain the push-up and pull-up system, but I don't encourage you to give a pull-up until they've actually learned it on Friday, which is the orientation, the rules, the expectations, and this is a real thing. Because as you know, if I get a GP, individual, non-political, and I get one that's IHP, because we do have IHP and non-political there, it won't go very well. If someone's like, hey, you can't be walking on the rocks, I'm giving you a pull-up. The hell you are.
But see that thing
The
there,
hell you are.
that's any community with any people. If I walk into a house on the streets and someone just tells me what I can and can't do off the rip, you're gonna have that resistance, right? That's not just a prison thing, that's a human thing.
I got backed up into a corner over telling a guy to put on a shirt on and a run.
You know,
But, you know,
sorry about that.
yeah, I mean,
I was
like,
mad.
yeah, it was bad. Yeah, I know. I would appreciate it. And no, and you know, there was one staff member on the entire unit because they were that short. And so that was really interesting, you know, to be like, all right, maybe you don't need to put on your shirt. Just kidding. No, he put on his shirt after all, but needless to say, he did have a learning experience the next day. So yeah.
It's a place to
And he's better
learn,
now,
to
by the
grow.
way.
And they do it with staff too. Staff has the push-ups and pull-ups. I've seen it, which I thought was really cool. I
Yeah.
saw a CO3 go up there and say, hey, I've been late to work. I want to apologize to everybody, but I really want to be here, and just to have that accountability. It's really cool, and it's something we kind of touched on earlier with the different things that are happening in there. We went to Geo up in Kingman, and the amount of clinical staff that was there.
Oh yeah, they have a lot. They have
You know.
like 25 or something like that.
Packed. I'm
Yeah.
like, the therapist was introducing me to people, and I'm like, every single one of these is a clinician? She's like, oh yeah, she's a clinician, he's a clinician, he's a clinician, she's a
Because
clinician.
BHC is under a licensure, that's why
And
they're
then-
able to hire
Yeah,
more.
and then the BHT's working underneath them. It was really, really cool to see.
You need to plan the culinary class. So next visit, tell them you want to experience a culinary cooking class program. They may be homemade chili rellenos, elote, and like homemade beans and rice. And I didn't have anything to do with culinary in that private prison or anything, but they were like, hey, we'll have the culinary program make you food. What's your favorite food? I said, do you really want my favorite food? Because it's pretty difficult to make. I mean, chili rellenos aren't easy. Oh, they made it. It
Oh,
was
that's
so
awesome.
good.
And that's such a good skill.
It was so good. I'm not talking like, oh, it was good or like
Yeah.
restaurant good or it was prison good. No, it was good.
Prison do it.
Prison good.
There's a big difference. I used to be prison nice, so I get it. But yeah, it's awesome to see that the change that happens. And like we just went to Incarcerated Friday. Were you there?
Yeah.
Did I see you?
I hugged you for
We
60
did see each other.
seconds.
Yeah, I was.
60
Everybody's there, and oh, that's right. I totally
Yeah.
forgot now.
Yeah, we have
Oh.
pictures. It's right there.
It's on my wall. I get home from Tucson and Ashley's like, "Hey, you gotta hang out." I'm like, "Dude, I gotta do the podcast." She's like, "I don't give a shit. There's people coming over. They're in these pictures. Hang them up." So she's on the phone working. I'm nailing stuff to the wall. But
That's
being in there and seeing the creativity, right? The artwork, the tables that got built, the from pallets, right? And the stuff that they can do with food, and when they put that effort, that drive, and that passion into something productive, it's absolutely phenomenal when people are given purpose rather than punitive. When people are given a chance to learn and grow. And it's such a hard contrast because from a victim's point of view, I hate even using that word, but from people who were impacted by crime, they want justice, and in their minds, justice might be locking someone in a cell, treating them like shit, doing all this stuff for 4 or 5 years. But if the actual mission, which I do believe 100% it is to promote community safety,
Yep.
rehabilitation has to be a part of that.
Has to be.
Rehabilitation does not happen in a cold, dark, isolated cell where there's violence every time you open the door.
Has to be.
You know what's crazy too? Almost all the values and ethics, almost everything that's good that's happened in my life has started in prison. I mean, I got 2 college degrees in prison. I got sober in prison. I built a work ethic in prison because I had never had a job in my life, working at Hickman 6 days a week, 12 hours a day.
It's crazy.
Yeah, I'd never worked a day in my life, and when I left there, I could fix anything on that farm.
Yeah.
And just little things like that, from just learning to work, learning to get up early, learning to work long days, you know, getting an education, just all these little things, you know, putting together some years of sobriety. That was all stuff that I did in prison. It started there.
Yeah.
You know, if we can highlight more of that kind of data and what it does, I think it would be better. Are you right? Your dog, you be nice to that dog. She can't even hear that she's in trouble.
She's eating my toes.
She can't even hear that she's in trouble.
She's eating my toes.
She's
When
all,
I was in
she's all tied
Douglas-
up in my headphones.
I was in Douglas from 2009 to 2014, and at the time they had Coaching's College. And I was at Mojave and I was at Gila, and I got 2 college degrees. I got an Associate's in Applied Science and Business Management and Associate's in Applied Science and Computer Information Systems. And I remember I got out, I applied at a couple of places and didn't get hired right away. And immediately, in my mind, I told myself, well, because I had felonies, I'm never gonna be able to do anything with this. I self-destructed, I relapsed, I went back out. End of story. So, this time I was in prison, I still had those degrees, I built a work ethic, I put together some sobriety, I developed this passion, this desire to work in behavioral health. And when I got out, having those 2 degrees that I got in prison, that I never thought I was ever gonna be able to do anything with because I had felonies, got me $6 more an hour to start in behavioral health. And I never would've known that. So instead of, first out of prison, instead of starting at $18 an hour doing peer support, I started at $24 an hour.
That's amazing.
Because I had those college degrees that I got, that I convinced myself that I couldn't do anything with.
Yeah,
And
because
I got it for free.
you told yourself no.
And I got them for free.
I
I don't
wrote-
know student loans, I don't know anything.
Yeah.
I 100, and like I just noticed that I went to Rio. I think I did 4 classes out here, right? In Rio, it's so cost effective that it was covered basically by the Pell Grants. In prison, I did 22 classes or whatever. I think it was like 26 classes total. Well, I just transferred to GCU, and GCU is $400 and something a credit, and it showed me the transfer credits, how much money I saved, and it's like $60,000 or something that I was able to save
Yeah.
because of the stuff that I've done in prison. Now, in prison, you hear it from the guys, right? The guys that haven't started changing yet, that don't have the self-belief. You hear it all the time. It's something that's said. They're like, DOC doesn't do anything for me. Right? You hear that a lot. If, depending on the environment, I have one of 2 answers. It's either, what are you doing for the community, right? Because you're here every day. You don't think they're doing anything, that's cool. That's on us. I truly believe at the end of the day,
100%.
it's on us. Nobody cares about us more than us. End of story. But if that's your mindset, okay, let's just take that as truth. What are you doing? Right? How can you start doing something for the community and empower them to start lifting? But the DOC I went into, we didn't have a bachelor's degree. We didn't have an option. I think we might have had Rio at that time, but that was it.
Yeah.
But this is the truth. This is 2005, 2006. I came home, and the 3 certificates that were required, cultural diversity, anger something, or whatever the hell they were called, there was 3 classes you had to take back then. I came home, they were on my bed, signed, sitting there. I never even had to go to the class.
Yeah.
That was the DOC that I kind of grew up in.
Yeah.
And now with bachelor's level educations, Rio Salato's on site. I know they're on Perryville doing actual online classes with the girls. We do a lot of work with Rio. The RSAT units, the recovery communities, the therapeutic stuff that's involved. There's art studios on there. Like, you can't reasonably say that, and people do still say it, but that's, I think, where our job is, and we get to go in there as peers and be like, come on, dude.
When after the Kingdom riots, we'd opened up Red Rock, and I decided that, you know, I really like being in service because of 2013, being on East Unit and doing relapse prevention classes, and I met Principal Navarre. There was a principal there that oversaw the education department.
Was his name Navarre?
Navarre, yes. And I told him, I said, I really like helping people, but I'd also want to pursue my education. And Mr. Navarre was getting ready to retire. He contacted Calissa Hand. Calissa Hand got on the phone. I hadn't talked to my mom in 5 years. She got my mom on the phone. The educational system literally bridged the gap that I had with my family. And not only that, I was able to get my degree. And I did. I told her that was like 60 grand. I accumulated I accumulated 84 credits while incarcerated. 84.
Crazy.
Yeah,
It's crazy.
it's amazing.
It's amazing. And I learned how to weld at Hickman's. When you were talking about that, now I can run a bead. Like, I'm not a welder. I don't weld.
I learned how to make metal stick together at Hickman's. I definitely didn't learn how to weld.
You know, talking about another success story.
We got about
story,
3 minutes.
One of my good buddies, Kyle, you know, he was in Douglas with me. He took the HVAC program at that time. And he got out with the entry-level HVAC, EPA certifications. And now he's the executive of one of the biggest HVAC companies in Arizona. He's making $200,000+ a year.
Yeah.
Just from taking an HVAC vocation in prison.
Absolutely.
Question for you guys, because you say that, like, because I'm a firm believer in what you mentioned earlier, to touch back on that DOC does nothing for me. Like, what are they doing for me? So when we talk about this therapeutic communities, which are great, they're super labor intensive. It's a lot of data that we track. But how do we empower the same concept with like psychoeducational classes, something that maybe doesn't encourage necessarily a licensure, but more life skills and bonding? How do we encourage that, let's say at a Steiner?
You start with hope.
Yeah.
Guys
Okay.
that have been there, I've been on Steiner.
Yeah.
A lot of us
So-
have, you know?
So then with that, what would get in your way? If you could picture you being back at your cells, let's say we're at Steiner, we're all in cells. If we wanted to do something, what would be our barriers?
Well, I think that, yeah, bringing hope is great, but having a system in place to back that hope up.
Okay?
An opportunity with, what's next? Is it Hustle 2.0? Is it?
But I'm on the unit, right? And,
Yeah.
and am I going to a CO3? Am I going to a CO4?
See, that-
Like,
for-
what does that look like? What are your
For me
barriers?
now, that's super hard to answer
know.
because I don't see barriers.
I know.
I know what the end goal is. I'm
Yeah.
gonna make it happen. I don't give a shit.
Mhm.
And to be completely honest with you, the stuff that happens in the classroom, I believe that's important.
Yep.
But the real magic, the glue, that everything that sticks everything together, is the stuff that comes out of the classroom. The conversations you have on the run.
Yeah.
What you say to someone in a chow
Yeah.
hall when someone comes to you with some antisocial
So-
wording, and you're
I
like,
think
hey.
too, educating people on the systems, like having systems to where people can get vocational training, learn these life skills, develop all these different things while they're in, and then have resources for them available when they get out, and educate them on the resources, because there is resources out there. But if you're not familiar with this community, you don't know any of that.
I guess what I'm thinking of barriers too is the things like this. You're getting stigmatized by staff and you're getting stigmatized by your community that lives around you. And so when people are turning out to class going, why are you going to that? Or, oh, it's because you go to this church or that, whatever. Like, what are those barriers? Is a barrier because staff don't turn you out and like to your
That could, like,
class?
Yeah.
Like, so when I ask you that, because you guys are now implanted, and thank you, because you're at Santa Rita, you're at Maury,
Cimarron.
or sorry,
Cimarron.
Santa Rita, Cimarron, Lumley yet? Are you at Lumley?
Maury and we're getting ready to go to Perryville.
Yeah, okay, so you're at 3 and you're about ready to go to 4 units.
He's more than that, he goes to Second Chance and MRC.
Well, yeah, but
Yeah.
for the Inspiration Hope group specifically, will you start asking your groups, like, what are some barriers and challenges? Like, if you wanted to do more, you wanted to do a basket weaving class, or who knows what kind of class, what would be your challenges? Is it somebody opening a door? Is it a classroom space? Is
That's
it-
the thing, like, if identifying those challenges also provides excuses.
in
So
addition to that.
let's just figure out how to do it. Like for me, when I was in there, the easiest thing for me to do would be to just do it informally, figure it out, get it all on paper, have it up and running, and then go to the CO3 or the CO4 and hand them something they can just say yes or no to.
Okay.
But we've already been doing it for weeks. This is what's going on. These are the results. Here's a couple of testimonials. Can we get this on the unit clock?
Got it.
Sure. We made it really easy on staff because a lot of us struggle, and I did earlier where I'd start putting a strain on staff. Hey, can you do this? Can you help me with that? And staff's busy. They got shit to do, right? And as they should. So I quickly realized if I make this as easy as possible and I do all the heavy lifting, pro-socially, get everything up and running. Hey, these are your effects we're having. Look, we've already had 2 successes. Here's where we're at. Can we please continue this? Can we make it official? And they'd say yes, and we'd get it up and running, and
Okay.
it would be great.
That's fine.
There's always going to be obstacles. I was worried about people. I couldn't wait to get out of prison so people couldn't tell me what they can and can't do anymore. And then I got out here and I realized this whole freaking world out here wants to tell me what I can and can't do.
Yeah.
Right? So they're always going to be there.
Not just the woman you're
Figure
dating.
out what it is you're going to do and make it happen. That's a whole other story. But we're getting into our last couple of minutes here. What do you want to close with? It's going to be up to you to close. You got about a minute or two, and we're gonna.
Quite frankly, I always wonder, like, we're called correctional officers in this field that I work in, right? I'm no longer a correctional officer, I'm a treatment coordinator. But what are we correcting? Not just in this state, but in all of prison in our nation. Like, we're higher on crime now, obviously with the Trump administration, but yet compensation for corrections isn't coming up with that. We need bigger facilities, we need more programming, and if we're gonna be harder on crime, then we need to be just as equal on programming, because if we don't give them programming, then we don't create change, and we just create a systematic revolving door that creates more victims.
Yeah, recycling
And so,
trauma.
what are we correcting is like, really, that's what we should take away from it. How can we help to provide the resources to correct more people? Because they're gonna be your neighbors. They are. I mean, you might, like, I'm in your house.
Yep.
I'm safe, by the way. I couldn't be anywhere better than I'd rather be.
Please, everybody know she's safe.
Like, with 3, what are we, like, convicted, whatever, like, yeah, see,
No.
I'm safe, perfectly safe. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, we absolutely love having you here. I love having these conversations. This is the kind of stuff that makes change happen. This is the brainstorming, the masterminds, whatever you want to call it. Us getting together, talking about the shit that a lot of people don't talk about, or they shy away from, or whatever that looks like. It's important to get this stuff out there. It's important to get the feedback. To see the list of people that was on here tonight, from RSAT participants and graduates, now co-workers of mine, Daniel Rizzi, Holly's on here.
Oh, hey, Holly. Much love.
She's in town tomorrow. Let's get together tomorrow, Holly.
Yeah, we're at Deep tomorrow.
Kelly wants to know if you really said you can fix anything.